Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at some really cool things that we can do with Helm of the Host. And let's just jump into it. So Helm of the Host is a 4-mana equipment. It costs 5 to equip, and it says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except that the token isn't legendary. If equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste. Wow. That is a crazy ability. Because Wizards really hasn't messed around with the Legends rule that many times before this. The two instances that come to mind are Mirror Gallery and Brothers Yamazaki. So this just isn't something that we get to see very often. And this opens up a ton of creative deck building space. There are so many legendary creatures worth copying, but it's not worth devoting the deck slots to running Mirror Gallery and the clone effects. Helm is especially great because it does both all in one card. There are some really obvious interactions, especially anything to do with combat that happens on attacking or damaging an opponent, but I think there's also some not so obvious synergies that we'll talk about as well. The following is a brainstormed list of commanders that will do some really cool stuff when you have one or more copies of your commander on the battlefield from Helm of the Host. Currently, there are 794 legendary creatures in Magic, so I am certainly not going to be able to cover all of them in this video, but I want to show as many interesting ones as I can, just to get the gears turning in your guys' brains about some potentially cool ideas to build around for your future decks. Helm of the Host is not necessarily the most efficient or powerful thing to do with a given commander, but it's still going to grant some really cool benefits on the off chance that you find yourself with one of these creatures equipped with the Helm of the Host, and is definitely worth exploring. So, the most powerful has to be Aurelia the War Leader and Godo Bandit Warlord, simply because if you get either of these equipped, you get infinite combat steps, and the game is probably over after that. I've been able to execute this combo a couple times, and it is as advertised. So as you might imagine, it is a little bit slow since there's a lot of mana involved, so it's not something that you can do quickly, but late in the game, you basically have an automatic win condition, which is really cool. Now, a couple ways to defend against this. The obvious one is instant speed removal, get rid of the creature. Artifact removal will also do it. But also, ghostly prison type effects make it so that you can't attack someone infinitely because they won't have enough mana to keep attacking. So those are 3 easy ways that you can protect yourself from this combo. But after playing this a few times, it is very, very powerful. Both of these commanders just jumped up several rungs on the ladder of casual to competitive. Not saying that they're tier 1 competitive decks, it's still not the quickest thing to get this combo going, but both of these commanders can hang with some pretty powerful decks now, if you're talking like a 9 out of 10 power-wise, where it's not quite competitive commander where things end on turn 3, but the game still might end on turn 6 or 7. So it's really, really powerful. I always like playing underdog decks, and running the Helm of the Host combo with these commanders pretty firmly takes them out of the underdog category, since you're talking about your commander plus 1 card to win the game, and in Godo's case, Godo tutors for the 1 card that you need. So again, really, really powerful, huge upgrade for both of those decks. I can see it being a choice for people to not run this combo because it so easily just ends the game. Now, if you're in a more competitive meta, then that might be fine, but if you're in a very casual meta, I probably wouldn't run this combo. Next up, the Cycle of Titans. So, equipping up any of the Titans with Helm of the Host is going to be really sweet, since you probably cast the Titan, so you got the Enter the Battlefield trigger, and then if you equip it, you're going to get the Enter the Battlefield trigger off the copy, and then the copy has haste, so you can attack with it right away. So you've probably just gotten 3 triggers from your Titan, which is going to generate so much value. And if for some reason you can already attack with your Titan, then you're going to get 4 triggers in the same turn, and that's going to make so many zombies or throw so many lightning bolts, etc., etc. You guys get the idea, you're going to be pretty far ahead. So even though they're not legendary, equipping up one of the Titans is going to be a really solid play, and it's going to generate a huge amount of advantage for you. So I definitely had to include it here, and I'm looking forward to getting a Titan equipped. So our next category is token makers, and there's a lot of really cool token makers that we can do some crazy stuff with Helm of the Host. Having 2 Locust Gods seems pretty crazy. Every time you draw a card, you're going to make 2 tokens. Being able to draw like 5 cards with 2 Locust Gods out is going to be crazy, and just imagine if you have even more than 2 Locust Gods. Oh my god, Krenko is going to be ridiculous. Tap the first one, double up your goblins. Tap the second one, double up your goblins. You're going to have a whole lot of goblins. Darien, same thing. Every time you take damage, get 2 tokens per damage. Sounds pretty good to me. Talrand, 2 tokens per spell. Pia and Kiran Nalaar, not the most exciting, but still alright, just as an ETB where you're going to be continuously making tokens. I'm absolutely sure that there is something crazy to do with Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker. I haven't looked at all the possibilities yet. I know that there's already ways to go infinite with them, but I assume that you can just do more craziness, getting Kiki-Jiki equipped up and copying more stuff. And things you copy with Kiki-Jiki are usually enter the battlefield cards anyway, so I think Helm of the Host is going to play beautifully with Kiki-Jiki. Nath of the Guilt Leaf may not seem crazy at first, but when you think about the fact that opponents are going to have to discard 2 cards, and you're going to get 4 tokens out of the deal when that happens, sounds pretty crazy. Basically, no one's going to have a hand, and you're going to have a million tokens in play, and you're probably not too far away from winning the game. Wasatora, a little bit more subtle, still having a bunch of flying power that's going to force opponents to either sacrifice creatures or you get to make additional tokens. Having more of that effect around sounds pretty reasonable to me. So we have a few more token makers. Oh my god, Edgar Markov seems insane because you're going to get double Eminence triggers and you're going to get double attack triggers. Both copies attack, you're putting 2 +1/+1 counters on everything. Yeah, seems ridiculous. Brea, another one, not the craziest, but you'll still get to generate 3 additional tokens each time it copies. Nothing wrong with that. Hazazon also seems really crazy. So when he comes in, he creates a delayed trigger, so it doesn't matter whether the token stays in play or not, you're still going to get that extra trigger, making a whole bunch more tokens. And that'll happen every turn you'll make a copy, and then every turn after that you'll get to make all the tokens. Sounds pretty good. Kazul, not insane, but provides an additional taxing effect, so opponents will have to pay 6, or you'll be getting to make some tokens, which sounds pretty cool. Ishkana sounds really cool, making a bunch of tokens each time it comes in, and then being able to use that drain ability for the number of spiders you control. I imagine in a turn or two, you'll be able to take an opponent out of the game really easily. And then finally, Jedit Ojanen. Attack with more Jedit Ojanens, make more Cat Warriors. Again, probably not the most powerful thing in this list, but still sounds like a ton of fun. So next up are commanders with triggered abilities. You'll see Zozu the Punisher. Having a couple copies of Zozu around seems pretty fun. He's going to cost you a lot of life to play your lands. Malik will give you an additional copy of the spell for each copy of Malik you have out. Yeah, pretty awesome. Mazarek, you're going to be putting a ton of +1/+1 counters on things. One of the ones I'm really excited about, Rurik Thar, getting more than 1 copy of Rurik Thar out. So even just having a second copy, if an opponent plays a non-creature spell, it's going to do 12 damage to them. Yes, please. And just imagine if you get to a point where you have 3 copies, not only is that just a lot of creature power, but your opponents basically can't play non-creature spells at that point. Having an extra Neheb around gives you a way to double up the mana. Not that Neheb really needs it, but it would still be fun to pull off for science, just to see how much mana you can generate with it. And then finally, you see Karavek the Merciless. You can sling double the damage to each target for each spell that gets cast. Sounds pretty good. Here's a few more triggered ability commanders. These ones aren't quite as exciting as the others, but I think there's still some cool space to explore here. Nekusar's ability seems pretty solid because each card drawn will do 2 damage, and they'll be drawing 2 additional cards, so there's a decent amount of value there. Omnath seems pretty crazy. Having multiple Omnaths out, it's going to double your landfall triggers and double the damage triggers when an elemental dies. Yeah, seems pretty good. And that deck can support big mana really easily. I think Helm of the Host will be right at home with Omnath. Ooh, yeah, this is another one that I'm super excited about. Copying any of the legendary Praetors, except for Urabrask. Unfortunately, Urabrask's abilities are redundant and don't stack. However, the other 4 Praetors are going to get really crazy the more copies of them you get. With even just a second copy of Elesh Norn, your opponent's creatures are getting -4/-4, and yours are getting +4/+4. Seems pretty good. Tripling your mana with Vorinclex sounds awesome. I'm actually not sure how the second half of Vorinclex works. I'm not sure if Vorinclex's other ability will stack across turns or if they all come off on that one turn. I would have to see the ruling on that. Bajinka Taxis will give you a cool draw 14, and with Shieldred, that'll be each opponent sacrifices 2, and you get to reanimate 2. Not too bad. So definitely excited to copy some of the Praetors. I think Elesh Norn is very high on my list, and is one that I definitely want to check out. So next up are commanders with static abilities, and this is where you're going to find all your prison commanders. Having multiple Thalias around, spells are going to get really expensive. Grand Arbiter Augustin, opponent spells will get really expensive. Iona start locking multiple colors out of the game. Man, imagine if you can get all 5 colors on Iona. I mean, it won't be fun for your opponents, but it sounds like a ton of fun to do one time. And here we have some more static ability commanders. You'll see Arvad. Arvad's interesting. The more copies of Arvad you get, all your legendary creatures will get +2/+2. Now, note that the tokens aren't legendary. You'll have to keep track of who's getting +2/+2 and who's not. Easier to do on Magic Online than it is in paper, but still seems like a reasonable effect. Jeleva, I'm really excited about. I really want to have like 2 or 3 Jezelas in play because it'll be double the damage, and then double the damage again. Having just a second Jezela in play means that if either one of them attack, it'll be attacking for a cool 20 damage. I'm really excited to try that one out. Neheb the Worthy, just using this as an example, basically any legendary lord will give you a decent benefit if you're playing some sort of tribal deck. The next category, probably not the best thing to do with Helm of the Host, but still something to explore. Any of the experience counter creatures. Potentially each action that you do could get you 2 experience counters instead of 1. If for some reason your goal was to achieve the maximum number of experience counters, then this might be a combo worth looking at. But under normal gameplay circumstances, probably won't be the most efficient use of Helm of the Host, but still something to look at if you like exploring and trying to do different stuff. Ooh, and here's another group of powerhouses. Any ETB commander with Helm of the Host is going to be ridiculous. Multiple copies of Shroom? Yes, please. Jeleva also seems really crazy since the token can attack right away. Sidisi start tutoring like crazy. Dragonlord Silumgar start stealing all your opponent's stuff. Prime Speaker Zagana start drawing a million cards. Get multiple copies of Nazan, search for a ton of equipments. If you have Nazan's hammer out, then you're going to be able to equip them for free. And I always forget about that tap ability, but there is a tap ability on Nazan too. So you're going to be able to tap out your opponent's blockers, which is also pretty sweet. And Sidisi will just do crazy stuff. Each copy will mill when it comes in, each copy will mill when it attacks, and you're just going to be making a ton of zombies and milling through your library very quickly. So here we have a few more ETB creatures. Just like with any ETB creature, running Panharmonicon with your ETBs is going to be really good. Panharmonicon and Helm of the Host down with an Enter the Battlefield commander. You'll get 2 triggers from the original, 2 triggers from the token copy, and you should be able to do some really crazy stuff by the time that you have 4 triggers from your commander. We've got a few non-legendary ETB creatures. The Primordials are definitely very interesting. Getting multiple copies of those with multiple opponents is going to generate tons and tons of advantage for you, so that seems pretty cool. Oh yeah, so next up, combat-based commanders. So first up, we see Zur the Enchanter. Attack with multiple Zurs. Search your library for multiple enchantments each turn. Sounds pretty good. Multiple Thraxamundars? Oh my god. So one, that's a lot of power to be attacking with each turn. Your opponent's going to have to sacrifice 2 creatures, and they're both going to get bigger. Sounds pretty ridiculous. Narset with Helm of the Host will just be absolutely busted. You'll probably get to play your entire deck for free. Not that Narset struggles doing that anyway, but it gives you one more way to do so. Atali seems really crazy with Helm. It's another way for you to generate 2 Atali triggers in the same turn, on top of other ways like Strionic Resonator to generate additional triggers. So you'll be able to get a ton of value out of that as well. The Ur Dragon just seems funny because 1, it's a ton of power, you'll be drawing a ton of cards, and you'll be putting 2 permanents into play from your hand. Kalia also going to be ridiculous with Helm of the Host attached to it. Stonebrow, pretty interesting. It's an on-attack trigger, and if you stack that trigger a couple times, your creatures are going to be huge. And another one that I'm really excited to try out is Corona. So if there's multiple Coronas flying around the board and your opponent's creatures are just getting huge, I want to try a Pillow Fort style deck where you basically have multiple Coronas pinball around the board, making everyone else's stuff huge. So we have some more combat-based commanders. Ink Eyes, double up your creature reanimation. Ikra Shadiki, double up your life gain. So next up are commanders with activated abilities. And what I like about these is that the copy comes down with haste, so you can use that activated ability right away. First up, we have Roshin. If you're trying to double up mana for your big X spells, not a bad way to do it. Teriel, Reckoner of Souls. Visara, ooh, destroy 2 creatures whenever you want at instant speed. Yes, please. Vona, start paying some life and destroying non-land permanents. You better find a way to gain some life back with that one, though. Mangara, you can exile a permanent each turn. Yes, please. And then finally, both Selvalas do a bunch of crazy ramp shenanigans and generate tons and tons of mana. We have a few more creatures with activated abilities. And then finally, we got the legendary Eldrazi. Start making copies of your favorite legendary Eldrazi and probably win the game. The Annihilator Eldrazi are certainly very interesting. Being able to annihilate someone for 8 a turn probably takes them out of the game. The thing to keep in mind is that you won't get the cast triggers from the Eldrazi, but still, just getting copies of them, either of the Annihilator effect or just having a bunch of really huge creatures out, is still going to do a ton of work. So we've got a pretty big list, a lot of commanders on there. As I said, 749 total legendary creatures in Magic right now, and who knows how many more non-legendary creatures that Helm will pair with well. Anyway, let's take a look at the 10 that I like the most. Elesh Norn, make your stuff absolutely massive. Most of your opponent's stuff will die to state-based effects, and what's left will be very, very small. Continuing on our top 10 list, Rurik Thar, having 2 or 3 Rurik Thars out will basically make it impossible for your opponents to play non-creatures. Jeleva, cast a ton of things for free. Atali, cast a ton of things for free. Corona, make your stuff huge on your turn, make your opponent's stuff huge on their turn. Gisela, double the damage, double the damage. Imagine having 3 or 4 if you have 3 or 4 copies of Gisela, the game should be over. Even just attacking with a single Gisela will do so much damage. And you have so much damage reduction that your opponents will need to attack into you with like a massive army just to do any kind of damage at all. I'm really excited to get multiple Giselas going. Anyway, this is a bunch of really cool things that you can do with Helm of the Host. It is a card that has a lot of deck building space open to it, because we rarely get to ignore the Legends rule. This is one of the very few cards in the game that allow us to do it, and it does both of the things we want, which is ignoring the Legends rule and making a copy of our legendary creature. So Helm of the Host has a lot of room to explore with. What commanders are you guys most excited to get paired up with Helm of the Host? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.